My big concern is that it's going to be a slugfest. This is war for America. We're fighting, literally everybody's got a gun to the head of the American taxpayer. The way that we subsidize all the deadbeats in the world, everybody is grifting off the American taxpayer, and neither party's going to fix it.
I think traditionally, Republicans look at, okay, my voters want these 10 things, and then there's some stuff in the middle. And Democrats say there's 10 things that my voters want, and then there's 3 things in the middle. What I heard you just say is, like, hey, get rid of those lines. Like, here's the deal. The young Americans want radical change. They want a fight. They want you to say the system sucks, fight it. They want you to say healthcare sucks, fight it. Don't just Band-Aid crap and say I'm going to add a health savings account. Like me, I'm sort of looking at this entire healthcare thing saying, why are we putting Band-Aids on a crappy system? We're given the opportunity right now to fix it, blow it up and say, you know what, America, the system sucks. Democrats and government gave you something crappy. We're going to fix it. And the same thing with Doge. I agree with you. The thing that's so funny about this, we're almost $40 trillion in debt. No one in America says government works really well. No one. You could be the farthest left nut job in the world. No one looks at government and says, wow, well done, guys. You really deliver a good service. Everyone knows it's bureaucratic. It's inefficient. I thought Doge might have been a little clunky at times, but at the end of the day, the idea that we're giving cocaine to dogs and we're allowing ferrets to get wasted on government money to see how they react. Hey, newsflash, I can tell you, like, people want radical change. And what I hear you saying, Mark, is stop with the conservative, traditional, cut my taxes, do these 5 things. Instead, talk about radical change.
100%. And this isn't to say we got to be a socialist country. Under 40 voters, and everybody really, says that free market capitalism is actually the best path. Free market capitalism wins by 50 or 60 points over socialism. The problem is it's just nobody believes that we have that. And so if you're the big company, free market economics party, and you're trying to run on a system that these people are wise enough to know has failed, like, you're going to lose. And that's what I said to Trump. One of the lines I said was, you can't be the oligarchy. You actually have to fight it, because the left, and it's weird you say nobody thinks the government works. Well, there are the Biden strong approvers, these people who worship government, and that's what you're up against. These are people who are going to come in and have big government responses. The young democratic socialism people in the Democrat Party have an answer for things like the housing crisis, and it's going to be a massive $10 trillion wealth redistribution scheme that is going to be targeted against billionaires, but the billionaires will escape and it'll destroy our country. But at least they have an answer. The Republican answer is no, we just have to free market capitalism harder. And like, that's just not going to work. And the problem is that I see, and I hate to sound like a raging populist, but this is the horseshoe theory of politics. Only one candidate in our head-to-head matchups has actually beaten J.D. Vance, and it's Bernie Sanders. And so you hear the way that Sanders and Vance talk about some things are actually pretty close on this, like, anti-corporatist stuff. And healthcare is a really great example. If the healthcare plan the Republicans had is a reflective example of how they're going to govern, they deserve to lose for generations. We have 40 trillion debt, give it or take a few $1 trillion, about half of it's from Medicare and Medicaid. And so when the left plan is, okay, we have these subsidies, it's a transfer payment. We take taxes in and give it to other people. Well, the Republican plan is we're going to keep those transfer payments, but then also make sure Jamie Dimon gets a cut. That's terrible. You've paid hundreds of millions in Washington, D.C. on healthcare policy think tanks, and that's the best you have. That's terrible. And Trump's MFN that he's bragging about, I mean, it's great, but I don't think it's that much better. Less than 10% of healthcare expenditures in this country is pharmaceutical. If he brings it down 20%, we're talking about like a 2 or 3% savings in all the healthcare. And healthcare is the biggest employer in almost every state now. The hospital is the biggest building in almost every county now. It's literally eating our GDP. It's 20%, like roughly half of that is taxpayer funded. What about like these CEOs that are donating personal checks to John Thune in the Senate? What about these people that are a revolving door into the agencies that set the pricing? And the fact that the pricing incentives are misaligned. Like, there is a good libertarian free market response to these, but it involves the government being hostile. And like Trump, I love him. He's not really hostile to CEOs. You know what I mean? Like Mark Zuckerberg helped steal his election, and he was inviting him to the White House, getting him to help build a beautiful big ballroom. And this kind of came up in the conversation. Sean, this one really, really upset me. He was talking a lot about golfing with Lindsey Graham, and he really liked that fundraiser they did. He's really friends with Lindsey Graham. He likes the way he golfs. But then he was talking about how he liked golfing with Brett Baer too. And I said, sir, why would you golf with Brett Baer? And he's like, why? What's wrong with that? And I said, well, sir, he helped steal your election. And millions of your supporters canceled Fox News on November 3rd, 2020, myself included, canceled cable. I haven't watched Fox News since. And 2 weeks later, he's golfing with Brett Baer. So this is my big concern, is that it's going to be a slugfest. This is war for America. We're fighting. Literally everybody's got a gun to the head of the American taxpayer. The way that we subsidize all the deadbeats in the world, we're a military backstop for West Europe. We offshored all of our manufacturing to China. We offshored most of our white collar jobs to India. USAID is basically funding all of Africa and our welfare fraud. The drug trade is financing South America. You could go on and on and on. Everybody is grifting off the American taxpayer, and neither party's going to fix it. The Republican Party should be the one that's responsible enough to understand the depths of these problems.
100%. This is what I think is so funny. Actually, I should use the word sad. It's like Trump stands up to NATO and people go, how dare he treat our allies like that? I'm like, I'm sorry. How about the other way around? How about a bunch of allies grifting off the United States for decades and we don't say a thing on tariffs? Other countries saying, hey, we'll have full unfettered access to the U.S. market, but we'll charge you 50, 60, 100% tariff or non-tariff barriers coming in our country. Sit back and take it. And we go, yes, sir. May I have another? And yet we're supposed to be the bad guy. I mean, China, same thing, where I'm like, they gave us COVID. Then we said, hey, can we buy our PPE and drugs from you to fix the disease that you sent us, the virus that you sent us? And our answer, our lesson learned is, hey, let's get TikTok. I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. Now, let me ask you the other question that I had written down immediately. Trump gets, the way the media portrays him is that he is a sycophant that surrounds himself with people he wants to only hear positive things from. They cook the books on polling. And Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen walks in and says, here's the truth bomb, sir. What is his reaction? I mean, because again, the media doesn't like this because this undermines the narrative that he does. I tell people all the time, he takes criticism. Sometimes how you do it matters. So how was his reaction? You're telling him all this stuff. How did he react?
I don't really know how to answer that. Again, I'm like quasi-autistic. I have a really hard time memorizing conversations. You know how Trump is.
Did he yell at you? Did he yell at you?
No.
Did he say, get out? Okay.
No, he was
Did he say, interesting? Did he listen?
Pensive. Yeah, he was pensive. He listened. And some of it you could tell he was on it, right? I'm not trying. I want to be very careful about how I portray this. It was a good conversation. He was on it. I was really impressed. And it was rapid back and forth with Susie Wiles and JD. But it's Trump. It's a stream of consciousness, right? But there was just stuff where I could tell, like you're saying, that the influences he's talking to are not the right ones. I'll give you two examples. So one is, and this was not from the meeting, but Trump was anti-H-1B back at the end of 2020. And if you look at the way he talked about it, it was for the right reasons. And at the time, Lindsey Graham came out and was very hostile in a public Twitter thread about Trump and how immigrants helped build America and how can we be so hostile to businesses. And now Lindsey Graham, who he spent a lot of the meeting talking about golfing with, Trump's position publicly on H-1Bs sounds like Lindsey Graham's. And then the other one is that, I talked about the Epstein stuff. I talked a lot about government reform. Oh, actually, let me use the housing example. I think this one's even more important. I brought up the median first-time homebuyer price as an economic measure that we need to look at instead of the stock market, because the stock market is very concentrated, a lot of wealth concentration there, but but voters, median first-time homebuyer age is 40 years old. It's been skyrocketing in the last couple of years. That means your average Zoomer or millennial has got to work for 22 years before they buy a house. And I brought this up. And his response to that was, well, a lot of people, are really invested in maintaining the home values. We can't jeopardize them. And it's like, well, no, you kind of have to, because this is literally the number one issue when you talk to these people And it's deeper than housing. It's much deeper than housing, but it is their major pain point. They literally, like almost half of these people don't think they'll ever own houses. That's bad. And that's demoralizing because that's been sold to them as the American dream. That's what it worked for the boomers. It worked for most of Gen X. These are these people's parents. And the polling says this, only 27% of America thinks today's children will be better off than their parents. In my opinion, that's probably one of the metrics we would look at instead of stock market. We would look at wealth inequality measures. We would look at, the percent employed in high salaried positions coming out of our academic institutions. And these things aren't even on the radar screen. And quite frankly, one of the best things for under 40 voters would have been a controlled detonation of the housing market back a year ago when we would have had time to walk it off and be intentional about why we were doing it. And is that a good idea? I don't know. I'm not an economist, but I think the under 40 voters would have understood. And it would, you know what I mean? We're getting to the point where there are no easy answers. And here's the other thing. Look at tariffs. You mentioned tariffs. I think that this is a very important thing. Let's compare tariffs to Epstein. So tariffs are more important than Epstein.
That's the first time I've heard that one.
Yeah. Tariffs are more important than Epstein by a lot, okay? If you just look at those two issues. And the polling on tariffs is challenging because people don't understand them. But ubiquitously, most pollsters would say that objectively worded, people are against them because of the chaos, right? And that kind of stuff. Because they do fear chaos. That's just human nature. And this was a big thing back in March, right before Liberation Day. And then people tried to paint Trump as being chaotic and he's tanking the market, and all of the mainstream media press came out against him. There was an op to try to undermine Trump with the tariff chaos, right? Well, it didn't work. It didn't work at all. People were on board. They're like, you know what? I understand why he's doing this. I'm on board. Yep, we got to break a few eggs to make this omelet. Now, Epstein on the other situation, much, much, much less important, right? And then the stuff in February didn't matter. But in July, Pam Bondi came out and said, case closed. And people freaked out. That hurt Trump's numbers. And he lost, in my opinion, almost 5% of independents, probably permanently. And you talk to Rich Barris, who takes a lot of feedback from his polls, like verbal feedback. It's something that's brought up over and over and over again. And it's something that the youth talk about over and over again. And why is it? Well, there's no excusable reason to do this. It's inexcusable. It's not the most important. It's the most egregious. And why? Well, these people hate the system. How do you fix a system? Well, with fairness. That's what American people want right now. That's what reform is. They want to restore fairness. And a two-tiered system of justice is literally the most unpopular thing we've ever polled at. It's the only time I got close to 100%. 95% think it's important that we don't have a two-tiered system of justice. And that's what the Epstein thing represents. So 16% of America said the case was closed. 68% of America says that wealthy and powerful predators need to be held accountable. So months later, and I predicted in July, this isn't going away. The right way to approach this is to say you're going to have the FBI investigate. You're not just going to be able to tell people, trust me, bro, because they don't trust the government. We all know that. And so Trump's been getting beat up for months. People were saying it looks like a cover up. People are really concerned about this. The younger people are making fun of him online because of the Epstein stuff. And I said in the White House, sir, the case closed thing was really bad. People, again, it's not the most important issue, but they want systematic reform. We need to see visible accountability. And he was like, yeah, Pam really shouldn't have said that. That wasn't a good statement. I'm like, yeah, I agree. But they raided Mar-a-Lago with authorized use of deadly force. And then 53% of America said the FBI is Joe Biden's personal Gestapo. And then we just put somebody else in charge of the Gestapo. These are core problems. And I think, again, you look at things like ignoring judges, you look at things like throwing people in jail. The young people want it. Older people are maybe less not on board. It's like the tariffs. But if you are clear about why you're doing it, and if the reason is systematic reform, I think America's there for it. I really do. Coloring outside the lines a little bit, maybe.
I was thinking about what you were saying about housing. So I'm a veteran. I have a VA loan. They streamline it. They make it easy for you. What about a home ownership program for young people to help them achieve home ownership through a streamlined loan, maybe a guarantee of some sort that doesn't go full, was it 2008 or something, where we make it free money, but we kind of create a path where maybe it's not the full 20% down or something. Because I agree. Suddenly a house is, I joke with people, the first house I bought, I put on a credit card. I mean, the down payment, because it's a funny long story, but the bottom line is that's how I was able to, pay the down payment at closing. And so, but now that would be incomprehensible. You think about like the average home prices in just Northern Virginia, even a condo is like, $400,000 or $500,000, 20% down is 80 to 100 grand. No one has that, right? So could you do something? Would you recommend to Trump if he says, okay, I hear you, what you're saying to me, Mark, how do I do this? Is maybe a loan program or something that makes home ownership, the American dream, more affordable, accessible?
Yeah, sure. I think it's probably, again, my approach would be, listen, this is a big problem. We're talking about one of the biggest industries in the U.S. and trillions of dollars in value, and we're not going to fix it overnight, but here's what our principles are, and we're going to start chipping away at it. I think that's the answer, and Trump kind of did that. He said, wait till January. There's going to be a lot more about the housing market. But I think here's the most specific point is that, again, this is crisis levels. We had almost 3/4 of under 40 voters say that the housing market prices are a crisis. This is like their number one issue. And overwhelmingly, by also 3/4, they would support excess wealth over 60%. It was 56% of Trump voters under 40. And I think over 70% of the Democrats would support a program of excess wealth confiscation in order to have a home buying program for young voters. So that's the level of pain they have. But here's the most important point is that even though this is their biggest issue, it hasn't been in the news. They haven't been beating people up about it. But when did people freak out? It was when Trump came out with the 50-year mortgage program. And so that is, in my opinion, a symbolic sign of inauthenticity and not understanding these people. And they care a lot. What's weird is that if you go and look at Google search trend volume, just for the word authenticity, it's spiking in the last year and a half. I think authenticity is the currency that these people crave. It's going to be the number one prime reason that Kamala Harris lost, for sure, not an authentic person. And it's going to be increasingly a problem, especially for Republicans who are, again, I think mostly owned by other interests. But when you come out with a 50-year home buying program, which is like, it's not like, hey, we're not working to fix. It's like our solution is so totally tone deaf. That's a problem. And people were laughing on it, rightfully so. I made a joke about, well, for your turkey this year, you're going to be able to get a 3-year turkey loan with no down payment. And because that, first off, it drives up home values because it allows financing to more people, right? And it's going to be used by older voters. And then it increased the amount of interest that goes to banking. So it's good for the banking industry. It's good for the home buyer industry. It'll probably drive up prices higher because there's more people competing over the existing inventory. But what's weird is we do kind of already have a plan for this. Charlie Kirk has that 6-point plan of economic populism that is focused on the housing market as well, that's been going around. So it's like if you just staple it to the White House wall and say, this is our plan, and it's going to take some time, folks, but this is driving everything because we need to actually be able to bring home prices down. I think it's a non-issue. I just really do. But when you put a billionaire home builder and then you have bankers in your administration and they talk to their banker buddies and they come up with a solution, then again, Bill Pulte might be a nice guy, but people were literally laughing at it. They were violently rebelling about it on my Twitter feed because it is a laughing stock. It's a joke. This is oligarchy stuff. And this is like, okay, well, you're going to run against a Bernie Sanders type. And this is your solution. It's like pay the banking industry more interest. It's not good enough.